Hey, you're there. If you like the content I bring, your help is essential. For the channel to remain active and grow more and more, I need your support. Each new follower is a huge incentive to continue creating exciting stories and videos full of fun and adventures. Also, by subscribing, you help me convert this passion into sustainable work, which allows me to offer you even more surprising content. As soon as you don't forget to subscribe, please like and share. Your participation makes all the difference. When Lara opened her email that morning, she had no idea that her life was about to fall apart. It was 6 in the morning. The sun had barely risen, and she was already up, as usual. Coffee in hand, hair tied back, eyes tired. On her body, the routine of a devoted wife. In her heart, the illusion of an unshakable love. But there, in front of the screen, she saw what she never wanted to see. Photos. Lots of photos. Her husband, Marcos, in the arms of another woman. It wasn't just any betrayal. It was meticulously hidden, wrapped up in business trips, endless meetings, and well-rehearsed excuses. Lara felt the ground disappear. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just turned off the computer and remained silent. Silence was all that was left. At that moment, something inside her began to die, or perhaps to be born. In the days that followed, Lara moved like a shadow. Marcos, as usual, smiled when he got home, kissed her forehead and pretended that everything was fine. But Lara now saw beyond that. Every gesture, every word, every breath he took was a lie. The worst part? The other woman in the photos was Julia, the secretary Lara herself had recommended for the position. A sweet, kind, and treacherous woman. Pain mixed with guilt, like a slow poison seeping through her soul. Lara felt ridiculous for having trusted too much, loved too much. But she didn't confront him. Not yet. She was watching. She was planning. And inside her, the desire for justice was beginning to take shape. It wouldn't be impulsive revenge. It would be something bigger, meticulous, irreversible. Lara began to put on her silent show. At first, she pretended not to know. She continued to be the perfect wife. She took care of the house, smiled at dinner, and made plans with Marcos. Meanwhile, she discreetly hired a private detective. At the same time, she began to get closer to her former partner, Davi, with whom she had broken ties years before out of jealousy of Marcos. Lara didn't just want to catch him cheating. She wanted to destroy the illusion he had built. She wanted to show the world who Marcos really was. Meanwhile, Marcos continued to underestimate Lara. Little did he know that the woman sleeping next to him was no longer the same. She was getting ready, and when the curtain fell, no one would be the same again. Julia, on the other hand, was starting to get restless. Marcos was distant, promising a future together, but never following through. He always said that the right time had not yet arrived. Meanwhile, Lara discovered more and more. The detective brought evidence of meetings, hotels, and even deleted messages from Marcos's cell phone. Lara kept everything with surgical coldness. On her face, an impenetrable disguise. She began to manipulate small details. She suggested trips for 2 with Marcos, special dinners. While he thought Lara was more in love than ever, she was leading him to the abyss. Each moment was a piece on the board. And Lara was now the coldest player in that game. One night, during a candlelit dinner, Marcos received a call from Julia. He didn't answer. Lara noticed, but didn't comment. She just smiled. She knew that Julia was starting to lose control. A few days later, Lara arranged a meeting with Davi, now in secret. She told him everything, without beating around the bush. Davi, impressed, decided to help her. Not out of pity, but out of admiration. Lara was being reborn. She was no longer a supporting character in her own life. With Davi, she worked out the next step to expose Marcos publicly at the company's gala event, where he would be honored. It was bold, but Lara was no longer the woman of maybe. She was made of certainties now, and her certainty was simple: Marcos would fall, and he would fall badly. The week of the event, Marcos was beaming. He had secured the company's most lucrative contract and would be rewarded for it. Julia, increasingly anxious, demanded answers, and Lara, she smiled, applied her makeup to perfection, and chose a red dress that made all eyes turn to her. On the big day, everything was ready. Davi organized a big screen. When everyone toasted, the lights went out, and then the photos began to appear, one by one. Marcos with Julia in different places at different times, silence, murmurs, embarrassment. Lara remained motionless like a goddess of tragedy. He tried to speak, stammered, sought her eyes. But Lara just raised her glass, toasted the silence, and walked out the front door. The repercussions were immediate. Marcos lost his $1 million contract, was removed from the board of directors, and within days became the subject of ridicule on social media. Julia was fired and disappeared from the company without a trace. Lara, however, was not celebrating. The pain was still there, intact. But now there was room for something more: freedom. Davi became a loyal ally, and together they started a new project in which Lara was the majority partner. For the first time, she was taking the reins. She no longer wanted to be known as the betrayed woman, but rather as someone who rebuilt everything from scratch. And meanwhile, Marcos, he was sinking into debt, despised, alone. The fall was not just financial, it was personal, human, irretrievable. Months passed. Lara was flourishing, but there was something that still disturbed her. A strange feeling, as if something was not complete. One day, she received a letter with no return address. She recognized Julia's handwriting. Inside the envelope, a confession. Julia claimed that Marcos manipulated her, that he used her as a distraction, that he had promised to make her rich, but never did. She said that he had never loved anyone, not even Lara, and that he had deeper secrets far beyond the betrayal. Lara didn't know if she believed him, but something in that letter disturbed her. She decided to investigate. Maybe her story with Marcos wasn't over. Maybe there was more rot under the carpet than she imagined. With Davi's help, Lara accessed old company documents. She discovered accounts in tax havens, fraudulent contracts, the names of frontmen, and her name, Lara Martins, in an account she had never opened. Marcos had used her name in financial fraud. The betrayal was now more than emotional. It was criminal. Lara felt a deep rage, a burning desire to see him behind bars, but she also felt fear. If she went down with him, she would lose everything. She needed to act even more carefully. She contacted a prosecutor who was a friend of Davi's and began putting together the dossier. Now, justice was not just emotional, it was legal, and Lara would stop at nothing to see Marcos pay for every detail. While Marcos isolated himself, Lara gained strength. The case was forwarded to the public prosecutor's office, and within a few days, Marcos was subpoenaed. The media, which had already fed on the betrayal, now had an even more succulent dish to dish. Out corporate corruption, money laundering, use of false documents. Lara, even in the spotlight, maintained her composure. She didn't give interviews. She didn't seek revenge. She wanted justice. And while he lost himself among lawyers, debts, and failed attempts to clear his name, Lara was building an empire. Davi, always by her side, had become more than a partner. He was her new safe haven. But she wasn't ready to love yet. Not yet. On a rainy morning, Marcos was arrested, handcuffed, beaten, humiliated. Lara watched the scene on television. She didn't smile, she didn't cry. She just took a deep breath and closed her eyes. That was the end of a cycle. Or maybe the beginning of a new one. For the first time in a long time, Lara felt at peace. The past no longer dominated her. The memories were still there, but they didn't hurt like before. They were now scars, visible but healed. When Davi invited her to go on a trip, she accepted, without fear, without hesitation. For the first time, she chose for herself. And on that plane, heading towards the unknown, Lara finally understood. She had saved herself. The trip was the beginning of something new. In an isolated village, Lara rediscovered simplicity, laughter, and touch. Davi was patient. He didn't force anything. He was just there, like someone who knows that true love doesn't require haste. They walked together, in silence, through fields and unspoken stories. Lara learned to listen to herself. She learned that pain doesn't define her. That betrayal isn't the end of everything. It's sometimes the beginning of a rebirth. And when, on a starry night, she held Davi's hand and smiled, she knew she was ready to love again. But now, by choice, for her. Lara returned to the country months later different, not just in her eyes, but in her soul. Her company was thriving. She now gave lectures and inspired other women. She turned her pain into strength and her story into purpose. Marcos was convicted. Julia, who reappeared to testify, also faced the consequences. But Lara was no longer seeking revenge. What she sought now was peace, and finally she found it. Davi became her life partner, but her focus was not on him, it was on herself. For the first time, Lara was the center of her own existence, strong, free, whole. At a charity event where she was telling her story, Lara became emotional. She looked at the audience and said, "Everything that destroyed me also rebuilt me." Applause echoed. She looked at Davi, who was watching her with pride. It wasn't about a happy ending with a new love. It was about a happy ending with yourself, about getting up, even when the whole world thought you would never be able to do it again, about silencing the pain with courage and transforming each tear into a road. Lara became a symbol of overcoming. She wrote a book, created an institute for betrayed and abused women, and never let her past define who she was. What began as unbearable pain became her greatest strength. She understood that she didn't need to be saved by anyone, only by herself. And in the silence of each night, when she laid her head on the pillow, she no longer heard the echo of betrayal. She heard only her own heart beating, strong, free, and finally, at peace.